Productions. Hiya monsters, and thanks again for stopping by for another YeahMan TV video. Hope all of you been doing well. Are you ready for the Christmas holiday? Are there any toys or gadgets that you're looking forward to getting? Let us know in the comments below. There has been one toy that's caught my eye. It also had caught the eyes of the couple in tonight's story. Monsters, have you ever heard of an ANKI vector robot? It's this little home robot that keeps you company. But one thing we'll learn about in tonight's story is that never buy an ANKI vector robot from Craigslist. So monsters, get your PayPals ready and let the story begin. Never buy a vector robot from Craigslist. It was Monday night and I just got home from a long day's work. As soon as I walked in the house, my wife came running up to me, squealing excitedly about something she had seen on the internet. My wife then led me to our living room and sat me down on the sofa. She grabbed her laptop and plopped down right beside me, sitting the laptop in my lap. She then pulled up YouTube and typed in the search bar, ANKI Vector Home Robot, and clicked on the vid that she had just previously watched. The Vector Robot was a neat little gadget, and the video did a great job explaining and showing the robot off. This little guy was square shaped and rolled around on rubber tracks. It would also come with a small cube that the Vector would carry around in its lift arms and play with from time to time. The thing that really stood out to me about the Vector Robot was that it could learn who you were and its surroundings using some sort of artificial intelligence, as well as a high-definition wide-angle camera to see things. The robot could also link up to the internet. I agreed with my wife. The Vector Robot was really cool, and being that her birthday had only been a few days away, I could tell that she had been throwing hints my way. With all the cool things this little robot could do and had, it also came with a pricey tag of $200. Unfortunately at the time, that was a little over my budget, and I could not help but feel disappointed that I would probably not be able to get it for her birthday. I kept my thoughts to myself as I watched her giggle and smile, pointing at the screen, pretending to pet the image of the Vector. She sure did want this thing. A day had gone by, and my wife was still telling me about the Vector Robot. Well, later that day, she had left to pick up groceries, and I had used that time to hop on the interwebs to see if there were any deals for a used robot. The first place I checked was Craigslist. I typed in used vector robot into the search bar and a new page popped up. There were 10 different advertisements and at least 4 of them were nothing pertaining to the toy. And the ads that did have used vector robots for sale wanted not much more less than what new ones went for. See, the past few weeks have been tough and hours at work had been scarce. But alas, I didn't want to give up, and at the bottom of the page I clicked to page 2. And on page 2, there was only one ad for a used vector robot. And to my behold, the seller had it priced for $50. I clicked on the ad and gained focus on the description. The description said it was used but only once, and from the image it looked new. It came in the box with instructions and all. I couldn't resist. I left a message to the seller asking if they still had it and that I had been interested in buying. Now I patiently waited for a reply, hoping it wasn't going to take too long, and with my luck, they responded back promptly. The reply had mentioned that they still had it, and would sell it to me. The message had also included an address, so I put the address into my phone, and the commute showed approximately 30 minutes away. I grabbed up my keys and headed out the door. I hopped into my car, I placed my phone on its stand, and I had began making my way to the location. I didn't have any money on me, so I made a quick stop at the ATM and withdrew $60. Now only a few minutes away from the destination, I received a text notification on my phone. It was from the seller. They had asked how long it would be before I got there. Well, I replied saying I was only minutes away. The quick response from them said that they had to leave in a rush, so that they would be leaving a brown paper bag with the vector robot inside, underneath a mailbox. with the address on the side of the box. The seller also mentioned to leave the money inside the mailbox. That's kinda odd, I thought to myself, then replied telling them I would. It was only moments when I turned onto a one-way street and noticed the brown paper bag sitting underneath an old beat-up mailbox with the address number on the side. The address had led me to an abandoned warehouse. It looked eerie enough, but I pulled up right beside the mailbox. Leaving the car on, I placed it in park and got out. I bent down to grab the bag and glanced in there and seen that the Vector robot was in its box just like they said. I picked it up and then glanced around to make sure that there was nobody watching, and then I slipped the cash into the mailbox. I hadn't stopped nowhere to break one of the 20s I got from the ATM, so instead of 50, I just gave them the 60. I got back into the car and checked into the bag and jostled the Vector box for a brief inspection. It looked fantastic to me. Now, my wife was already home when I pulled into the driveway. I had been so excited to give her this gift that I wasn't going to wait for her birthday. Approaching the front door, my wife opened it and greeted me. I hid the bag behind my back as I leaned over and kissed her cheek. "Welcome home," she said to me. "Thank you. Here, I have an early birthday gift for you," I said, bringing the gift around from my back and revealing it to her. "Sorry, I didn't have time to wrap it," I said. With that special sparkle in her eye, she took the bag from me and opened it. She let out the biggest squeal when she looked in there and seen the Vector robot. She thanked me graciously and gave me a huge hug. "Let's open it now," she said. We went to our living room and she had started pulling the robot from its box and placed it and the pieces, such as the charging port and the cube that it came along with. Surprisingly, the robot was already charged, because as soon as my wife rubbed her hand across the top of it, its eyes turned on and illuminated the front. Now, unlike the default setting on the new ones, the eyes weren't green. They were adjusted and set to red. Now, the small robot had begun rolling around on the coffee table, coming real close to falling off the edge, but at the last second would stop and back away, resuming its search about. That's when my wife said, "Hello, Vector." Though the Vector robot stopped in place and turned to face my wife. "Hello, Vector." And then my wife said her name to it. Now, Vector responded back with a hello, followed by my wife's name. "See, it can remember faces and names," she said. She told me to say hello to it too, so it would also know who I was. So I did. But after several attempts, the robot never responded back to me. It only seemed interested in my wife's movements, shuffling around every time she moved. It had even picked its cube up and presented it to her as a gift a couple of times that day. Now, nighttime had came fast, and due to the nap I had taken, it had been a pretty exhausting day. So as my wife hopped in the shower to get ready for bed, I had leaned back on the sofa and accidentally fell asleep watching TV. Not knowing what I know now, while I was asleep, I thought I heard whispering. Words so vulgar, I couldn't believe what I had heard. My wife had never spoken like that, and the voice I could also tell wasn't hers. It had woke me up from my nap. The ruckus was coming from down the hall, and the closer I got to it, I could also hear the shower running. My wife was still in the bathroom, and I had made my way around the corner and noticed the bathroom door was cracked. I had also noticed that the Vector robot was wedged in between the door and the frame, facing into the bathroom. What the hell? I thought as I grabbed it up and tossed it down the hall. And I said nothing to my wife, because she would have got mad about me throwing the thing. We were fixing to head upstairs to bed, and that's when my wife insisted we bring Vector with us to the upstairs bedroom, and have it to be our alarm clock for the night. I had asked her if we could just sit it on the table just outside the room. She said okay. Now, my wife had collected up the robot, its charging base and cube. Now, through the night, all I heard was Vector outside our room. Thumps, bumps, and these chirping noises continued, but I did finally fall asleep. At some point in the night, my wife shook me and said she heard something fall, and it might have been Vector. She just couldn't leave the robot alone. and wait till the morning. So she got up and went out the door. It was only moments after I had finally started to doze back off. I was alarmed, and I sat straight up in my bed when I heard the curdling scream from my wife, followed by a loud thump and breaking glass. I jumped out of bed, and I went to the bedroom door, swinging it open, only to be met with those little red beady eyes coming from the Vector robot. My wife. Where's my wife? I thought out loud. The robot turned, rolling towards the top of the stairs. The cube that came with the robot had been sitting directly in front of the stairs. I hadn't noticed it until Vector picked it up and it began to light up. With what seemed to be a laugh, the Vector robot rolled off with its cube down the opposite end of the hall and into another room. A cold feeling rose up my back. I still had heard nothing from my wife. And when I got to the stairs, there she was, body twisted and contorted, laying at the bottom of the steps. I had gone into shock, and my scream was soundless. I could not breathe. The scream I heard was from her falling down the stairs. The glass breaking was from the pictures that was hanging on the wall. She must have grabbed for the wall when falling, because she had taken them down with her. My hand over my mouth, I crept downstairs and to her side. I looked into her eyes as she looked into mine with that glossy look. Her pupils had dilated, and there was no response from her. She did not survive the fall, and was pronounced dead here by the EMS. The cops wrote it up as an accident, and that she must have lost her step when approaching the stairs or something. That must have been what happened, right? But maybe not, because once the police officer gave his condolences and left, I received a notification on my phone. I looked to see from who it was, and it was a message from an unknown number. It had left me a text that included video. There were 3 short video clips attached to the message. The first one was of my wife saying hello. It was odd. The second was another video of her, but she was unclothing and getting into the shower. I had chills, and I was so confused. I was puzzled at first, but when I clicked on the third vid, it was again of my wife. It was dark, but I could make out her silhouette. She was walking towards the camera, and that's when her foot slipped on the cube, and she tripped down the stairs. Hearing her scream again had me in tears, but the bone snapping I could hear in the audio had me curled up ready to vomit. That's when it all clicked. All the vids were taken by the Vector robot. Could it killed my wife? Stupid idea, I know, but the way it was acting that night was like it was being maniacal in its own way. I tried to call the number of the seller, but the number had been disconnected. It's been 2 days since all this occurred. It has also been 2 days since I've seen Vector. I'm sure he's still up in the room upstairs, but it's hard to do anything at the moment. I feel drained, and my mind is left with unanswered questions. I will eventually track the Vector robot down and see if I can find out any more about what happened. Those 3 videos that were sent to my phone have also been removed somehow. I will update as soon as I find out more. But if there is one thing I could say is never buy a Vector robot from Craigslist.